My sister said it out loud. There's no way you could have this much money after I showed her my income at dinner, so I replied, I've been waiting for this moment since you got me kicked out. I guess I'm finally ready to share this story. Not fishing for sympathy or anything, but maybe someone going through similar family nonsense might feel less alone reading this. When I was 8, everything in my life changed. That's when my sister Lily was born 2 months premature. I remember waking up to my dad rushing out the door in the middle of the night while my Aunt Jenny stayed with me. Everyone was freaking out about the baby, and even though I was just a kid, I could tell something was seriously wrong. Lily survived, obviously, but she was super fragile. When they brought her home, our house basically turned into a mini hospital overnight. Mom was constantly cleaning everything, and the place always smelled like those medical wipes and hand sanitizer. But the worst part was how I suddenly became a threat to my own sister. If I made even the tiniest sniffle or cough, Mom would completely flip out. "Sarah, was that a cough I just heard?" she'd ask, looking at me like I was carrying the plague or something. "We can't take any chances with Lily. Pack your backpack. You're staying at Grandma's for a few days." This happened all the time. I spent so many nights at Grandma's or Aunt Jenny's place that I had my own toothbrush and pajamas at both houses. At first, I thought it was kind of cool, like mini vacations where I got to eat ice cream for dinner sometimes. But after a while, even my 8-year-old brain figured out what was happening. I was being pushed out of my own home because Lily was the priority. I still remember sitting in Grandma's guest room one night crying because I just wanted to sleep in my own bed. I missed my stuffed animals, my nightlight, and just the feeling of being in my own space, you know? As I got older, I tried literally everything to get my parents to notice me. I worked my butt off in school and got straight A's. I stayed up late studying and won the district science fair in 5th grade with this project about plant growth in different types of light. I was so excited to show my parents. They barely acknowledged it. And the thing is, I don't even blame Lily for any of this. She was just a baby then, a little kid. It wasn't her fault. But as the years went by, the pattern just got more and more obvious and painful. By middle school, I was desperate for any scrap of attention. Once I aced a tough math test, and the teacher even wrote that I had exceptional talent. I showed it to my dad, hoping for a little recognition. He barely glanced at it and said, "Math comes easy to you. You should be getting perfect scores," then went back to helping Lily with her basic multiplication. I just went to my room and cried into my pillow. Family get-togethers were worse. My parents would gush over Lily's smallest achievements. Lily learned a new song. But when someone asked about me, it was always, "Sarah's doing fine in school," like I was a background character in my own life. So I started spending a lot of time alone in my room reading books. At least the characters in books noticed me in a way. Sounds pretty pathetic now that I'm typing it out, but that's how I coped back then. By the time Lily turned 7, she wasn't even sick anymore, like at all. Completely healthy kid running around, no problems whatsoever. But my parents were stuck in this weird protective mode that they couldn't snap out of. And Lily, that kid figured out real quick that she had power over everyone. She wasn't dumb. She'd act all weak and pitiful whenever she wanted something, and it worked every single time. When we were in high school, Lily became a total drama queen, constantly making up stories about how I was mean to her or scared her. I mostly just tried to stay out of her way, but it didn't matter what I actually did. She'd make stuff up anyway because she loved the attention. The breaking point happened when I was 17. I came home from debate team practice really tired and needed to study for a big test. Lily was playing really loud music in the living room, so I went to my room and closed the door. I didn't slam it or anything, just closed it normally because I wanted some quiet to study. About 10 minutes later, my dad burst into my room looking super angry. "What did you do to your sister?" I had no clue what he was talking about. Turned out Lily had run to them crying, claiming I had slammed the door in her face and yelled at her to shut up. Complete lies. But they believed her instantly, no questions asked. They didn't even ask for my side of the story. Mom and Dad went ballistic. Dad ranted about how my hostility and aggression towards sweet Lily were getting out of control. Mom acted like I was some kind of threat, saying she was genuinely concerned for Lily's safety and that my outbursts had been building up for months. Outbursts? I barely even spoke at home anymore. But Lily had been planting seeds for weeks, twisting little things to make me look bad, like claiming I gave her dirty looks or that I was always in a bad mood. They weren't hearing me. I tried to explain, but it didn't matter. Lily stood in the hallway, arms crossed, that faint smirk just for me. She knew exactly what she was doing. Dad's face was red. "Your hostility toward Lily is out of control." "Hostility? I closed my darn door," I snapped. "That's it." "But of course you believe her. You always do." "She wouldn't lie about something like this," Mom said sharply. I let out a cold laugh. She lies all the time, but you're too blind to see it. She's been playing you for years. You're just too desperate to have your perfect little princess to care. Dad's jaw clenched. Watch it. No, you watch it, I fired back. It was the final straw for me. You've made it pretty clear who you actually care about. It's her. Always her. I could disappear tomorrow, and you wouldn't notice until it made things inconvenient for Lily. Mom flinched, but Dad's face twisted in rage. That's enough. I wasn't done. You're pathetic. I spat the words burning in my throat. You don't care about what's true. You just want things to be easy. You let her walk all over you, and I'm done pretending like you're anything but weak for falling for it. The silence that followed was thick. Dad's face darkened, his fists clenched at his sides. Get out, he said low and dangerous. Get out of my house. I blinked, frozen for a second. You're serious? I don't want you here anymore. He pointed to the door. Go. I was 17 when Dad kicked me out. I didn't have time to think, let alone figure out where to go. I shoved whatever I could into my school backpack and gym bag, leaving most of my stuff behind: books, photos, everything. I thought about going to Grandma's, but it didn't feel like an option. She was always kind, but she never pushed back against my parents. Every time I stayed there growing up, it felt more like being stashed away than welcomed. I wasn't about to show up just to be sent back or told to work things out with Mom and Dad. So I slept in my old Toyota that night, parked in the corner of a grocery store lot. I sat there until 3 o'clock in the morning, staring at my phone, waiting for them to call and say it was a mistake that I could come home. The call never came. That first night turned into almost 4 months of living in my car. I'd park in different spots each night, behind stores in quiet neighborhoods, anywhere I wouldn't get noticed. I used the showers at school after gym class, did my homework in the library until they closed, washed my clothes in public bathroom sinks, and dried them on my car's dashboard when it was sunny. The worst part was that this was during winter, January through April. Freezing cold. The heater in my Toyota barely worked. I'd sleep in all my clothes with these blankets I got from Dollar Tree. Still, I'd wake up shivering, seeing my breath inside the car. Some mornings there was actual frost on the inside of my windows, but I still went to school every single day, never missed a class, kept my grades up. I was determined not to let them ruin my future too. My parents never called to check if I was okay. Not once in those months. They didn't care if I was literally freezing to death in a car somewhere. Meanwhile, I found out through social media that they had already turned my bedroom into a hobby room for Lily with a new desk and art supplies. They posted pictures of it on Facebook like I never even existed. I tried to hide that I was homeless, but it's really hard to keep something like that secret. My clothes started to smell no matter how much I tried to wash them in sinks. I was always tired from not sleeping well. One day, I fell asleep in English class, and my teacher kept me after to ask what was going on. I broke down crying right there. I just couldn't hold it together anymore. She called in the school counselor, and they figured out I'd been living in my car for almost 4 months. The counselor helped me get into a youth shelter. It wasn't great, noisy kind of rough with strict rules about when you had to be in and out, but at least it wasn't freezing in there. At least there were real showers and a place to do laundry. I stayed at that shelter until I graduated high school. Despite everything, I maintained a 4.0 GPA. I was even named valedictorian. No one from my family came to the ceremony. I gave my speech to a crowd of strangers talking about perseverance and overcoming obstacles while trying not to break down. After the ceremony, I watched all these other kids hugging their families, taking pictures, celebrating. I just went back to the shelter alone. Getting my college acceptance letter was honestly the best day of my life up to that point. A full scholarship to State University covering tuition and dorm housing. I literally sat down on the floor of the shelter and cried when I opened it. Some of the other shelter kids made fun of me for crying over a letter, but I didn't care. This was my ticket out. I moved into the dorms that August with everything I owned fitting into 2 garbage bags. My roommate Jessica took one look at my stuff and was like, "That's all you brought." I just shrugged and said I like to travel light. I wasn't about to tell this random girl that I was basically homeless before college. College was hard, but not just because of classes. I had to work 2 jobs while taking a full course load. The scholarship covered the basics only. I got a job at the dining hall, which was actually pretty sweet because I could eat for free during my shifts. I also worked at the campus library 20 hours a week. The library job was perfect because during slow times, which was most of the time, I could study at the desk. When other students went home for holidays or breaks, I'd stay in the nearly empty dorms since I had nowhere else to go. Those quiet campus weekends were actually kind of peaceful. No drama, no feeling like I was in anyone's way. Just me, my books, and blessed quiet. After 4 years of this grind, I graduated with a business degree and got a job as an entry-level manager at Davis Company. The pay wasn't great, like $41,000 a year, but it was enough for me to get my own tiny apartment. That first apartment was probably a complete dump by normal standards, but after living in a car and a shelter, it felt like a luxury hotel. I remember sitting on my secondhand futon that first night thinking, no one can kick me out of here. This is mine. So I'm working this boring office job living paycheck to paycheck like everyone else in their 20s. One night, I'm just scrolling through Instagram, bored out of my mind, and I see this ad, "Learn how to make your money work for you." I'd usually ignore stuff like that because it sounds scammy as heck, but something made me stop and click on it. It was this online investing course taught by a woman named Rachel. It cost $700, which was a huge amount for me back then, like almost my entire monthly food budget. But it seemed legit. She had real credentials and good reviews, so I decided to try it. I ate nothing but ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for 2 months straight to save up. That decision completely changed my life. Rachel explained investing in a way that just clicked in my brain. All the stuff that seemed complicated before suddenly made sense. I started super small, putting just $200 into a few stocks she recommended, then gradually invested more as I got the hang of it. I became obsessed with learning everything about the market. I read every article and book I could find, watched tutorials on YouTube, and spent hours studying company reports and financial statements. My first big break came when I found this small tech company nobody was talking about. I did tons of research, really believed in what they were doing, and put in $500, which was a huge risk for me back then. That investment grew to $4,200 in just 4 months when they announced a new product line. Then I rolled most of that into a biotech startup that had this promising cancer treatment in early trials. Again, it paid off big time. It tripled my money in about 6 months. The weird thing was, I kept my regular job as cover. I'd be sitting in these mind-numbing meetings about quarterly goals or whatever while secretly checking my investment app under the table. My boss would be droning on about a 3% increase in customer retention, and I'd be trying not to react when I saw one of my stocks had jumped 30% in a day. Every extra dollar I made went straight into investments. I never upgraded my life at all. I still lived in the same small apartment, still drove my old Toyota with over 180,000 miles on it, and still bought clothes from thrift stores. People at work probably thought I was just terrible with money, like poor Sarah must have massive student loans or something. But the hardest part was keeping it all secret. I was paranoid about anyone finding out. I didn't want coworkers getting suspicious if I suddenly started living better. I definitely didn't want my family somehow hearing about it through the grapevine. I hid my financial statements, never talked investments with anyone, used a separate email for all my trading accounts, and checked my portfolio only when I was alone. By the time I was 25, I was making more from my investments in a single day than I made in a whole month at my regular job. It was surreal. One random Tuesday morning, I checked my portfolio while eating breakfast and realized I had just crossed the $1 million mark. I actually had to sit down on the floor because my legs went weak. $1 million. Me, the girl who once lived in her car and counted quarters to do laundry. But I told absolutely no one. Not a single person knew. I was terrified that if my parents or Lily found out, they'd suddenly want to be family again. I'd seen how manipulative Lily could be all those years. I could just imagine what kind of sob story she'd come up with if she knew I had money. So I kept living this weird double-life, regular, boring job where I pretended to care about small raises, modest apartment, that I apologized to visitors about old car, that made embarrassing noises, all while watching my investment accounts grow by thousands every day. Sometimes I'd sit in my apartment at night, laptop open to my accounts, showing numbers that seemed completely unreal, and just laugh at how absurd it all was. I'd be at work earlier that day pretending to be excited about a $600 annual raise, then come home to see I'd made $20,000 in a single day from a good investment move. My coworkers would complain about not being able to afford vacations, and I'd nod along like, yeah, times are tough, while sitting on enough money to buy the whole company building. I'd go out with friends and we'd split the check down to the penny, and I'd act like that $3.50 for tax and tip really mattered to me. The secret started to weigh on me though. When you're hiding something that big, it creates this weird distance between you and everyone else. I couldn't talk about what I was really passionate about investing. I couldn't explain why I sometimes seemed distracted because a stock was tanking. It was lonely in a way that's hard to explain. And it had been almost 8 years since I talked to anyone in my family. 8 years of spending holidays alone, celebrating birthdays by myself, just me and my secret bank accounts. I'd basically decided long ago that I was done with all of them forever, like completely written them off. Then out of nowhere, Aunt Jenny contacted me on Facebook. She sent a message saying she'd been thinking about me and asked if we could get coffee. Jenny was always the only one who'd been nice to me growing up. She'd actually slipped me birthday cards with $20 in them when I was a kid and once bought me new shoes when mine fell apart and my parents wouldn't replace them. So against my better judgment, I said yes to coffee. We met at this Starbucks near my office. It was weird seeing her after so long. She looked older, gray hair now, but still had the same kind smile. After some awkward small talk about her job and how the rest of the extended family was doing, she got to the real reason for wanting to meet. "Your parents are having some money problems," she said carefully, watching my reaction like she was worried I might explode or something. "Your dad got laid off from his job about 6 months ago. They're saying it was downsizing, but honestly, I think he just couldn't keep up with the younger guys. And Lily?" She paused, sighing. "Well, she dropped out of that expensive college they were paying for. Carleton, I think it was called." I felt absolutely nothing when Jenny told me about their money problems. No happiness, no sadness, just nothing. Like hearing about strangers on a TV show I didn't watch. She said they'd been asking about me lately, wondering how I was. Sure. More like wondering if I had money they could use. I kept it simple and told her I was fine, still working my regular job. She looked relieved, probably thinking I'd been living under a bridge. Then she suggested I come to Christmas. Said it might be nice to reconnect. Everything in me wanted to say, absolutely not. Run away, don't get sucked back into their toxic nonsense. But some tiny part of me, the part that still remembered being that little girl desperate for her parents' attention, wondered if they'd changed at all. Plus, I was kind of curious. What would they say to me after all this time? "I'll think about it," I said, which was more than I should have promised. Jenny seemed happy with that and changed the subject. We finished our coffees, did an awkward hug goodbye, and I figured that would be the end of it. But a week later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but I was expecting a call about an investment property, so I picked up. "Sarah, is that you?" Her voice sounded exactly the same as I remembered, sending this weird chill down my back. "Yeah, it's me," I said flatly. "Oh, sweetheart, we've missed you so much," she gushed, like we'd been separated by some freak accident and not because they literally kicked me out of the house for closing my bedroom door. "Jenny said she saw you. You're working at Davis. That's wonderful. We'd love for you to come to Christmas dinner. Everyone will be there." The fake cheerfulness in her voice made me want to throw up. "Why now?" "Mom," I asked coldly. "Why contact me after all these years?" "Oh, Sarah, don't be like that. Family is family. Water under the bridge. Lily asks about you all the time." That was such an obvious lie, it was almost funny. Lily hadn't cared about me since we were little kids. She was probably just running out of people to mooch off now that her college dreams had crashed and burned. "Does she?" I said, not hiding how skeptical I was. "Of course. She's matured so much, Sarah. We've all had time to reflect. Please say you'll come to Christmas. It would mean so much to all of us." Against all logic and self-preservation instincts, I agreed. Maybe it was the loneliness talking, that hollow ache that never really left. Or maybe I was just craving some kind of closure, hoping against every ounce of reason that they'd changed. "Fine. I'll come to Christmas dinner." "Oh, that's wonderful news. I'll make your favorite dessert. Do you still like chocolate cake?" I almost laughed. My favorite dessert had been apple pie since I was 10. She didn't even know the most basic things about me. "Sure. Chocolate cake is fine," I said. No point correcting her. Later that night, I hung up feeling weird. Then Mom called again. This time she dropped the act a little faster. "Sarah, honey, we're in a bit of a tight spot," she said, trying to sound casual. "The mortgage is behind, and with Lily's student loans." And there it was. The real reason for the family reunion. Not "we miss you." Not "we're sorry we were terrible parents." Just "we need money." "How much?" I asked coldly. "Just $33,000 would help us get through this month," she said, trying to sound desperate, but also entitled, like I owed them this. "We'd pay you back, of course, once your father finds a new position." I thought about my investment account now worth over $7 million. I thought about freezing in my car all those winters ago. I thought about them turning my bedroom into Lily's hobby room while I was literally homeless. Part of me wanted to tell her to go to hell, but another part wanted to see how this would play out. Would they actually be grateful? Would they finally see me as valuable? Or would they just take and demand more? "I can send $1,500, I said. "That's all I can spare right now." A complete lie, obviously, but I wanted to see their reaction to getting less than they asked for. She sounded disappointed but accepted it. That would be helpful. Thank you, Sarah. I set up a monthly transfer, telling myself it was just an experiment just to keep an eye on them. But honestly, some broken part of me still wanted them to finally see me, to finally be proud of me, to treat me like I mattered. The transfer went through the next day. Mom called to thank me, but it was brief and a little cold, like she was annoyed I hadn't sent the full amount she'd asked for. Dad never called to say thanks at all. Over the next few weeks, I got a few texts from Lily. Super fake, overly friendly, asking how I was doing, saying she missed her big sis. I responded minimally. She never once apologized for her role in getting me kicked out, never acknowledged any of the past hurt, just acted like we were best buddies who had lost touch. One night she texted, "Oh my God, did you hear Dad's car broke down? They can barely pay bills already, and now this. So stressful for all of us." The hint was about as subtle as a brick to the face. I didn't respond. As Christmas got closer, I started getting more and more anxious. What was I walking into? Was I being an idiot? Was this some elaborate setup to get more money out of me? I almost canceled a dozen times, but I was also curious. Part of me wanted to see their faces when they realized I wasn't the desperate broken girl they'd thrown away. I had a stable job, my own place, and I was doing just fine without them. That would be satisfying at least. When Christmas Day arrived, I sat in my car outside my parents' house for like 15 minutes, seriously debating whether to just drive away. My stomach was in knots, but I finally forced myself to get out and walk to the door. Standing on their porch, I almost turned around and left like 3 separate times, but I rang the doorbell. Mom opened it, looking older but basically the same. "Sarah, you came." She gave me this awkward hug that I didn't return. I just stood there like a statue while she wrapped her arms around me. The house was full of relatives I barely remembered. Aunt Jenny gave me a genuine smile from across the room. Everyone else just looked uncomfortable, like they didn't know what to say to me. A few cousins I hadn't seen since I was a teenager gave me these weird pitying looks, like I was some charity case they had to be nice to. Lily was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She'd put on about 30 pounds since I last saw her and had that permanently annoyed expression of someone who's used to getting their way all the time. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed. "Well, look who it is. Still wearing the same cheap clothes I see." She eyed my outfit. I was wearing a simple sweater and jeans. Nothing fancy, but not exactly rags either. "Nice to see you too, Lily," I said flatly. Dad nodded stiffly from his recliner. "Your mother says you've been helping us out financially." "That's good." I just nodded. I didn't know why they were acting nice exactly, but I'd been sending them $1,500 a month for 3 months now, curious to see if it would change anything between us. Dinner was this weird performance. Mom made a big show of serving me first, making comments about how wonderful it was to have the whole family together again. But every other sentence was about Lily. Lily almost finished her degree, you know. She's just taking a little break. Lily's been offered several positions. She's just waiting for the right opportunity. I noticed Lily watching me closely whenever money came up, like when Dad mentioned their roof needed repairs, or when Mom talked about Lily needing a new car for job interviews. She was studying my reactions, probably trying to figure out exactly how much money I had. I kept my face neutral, just nodding sympathetically like any normal person with a modest income would. After dinner, Mom brought out a chocolate cake. "I made your favorite," she announced proudly. I didn't correct her that my favorite had been apple pie since I was 10. I just thanked her and took a small slice. That's when Lily started in. "So Sarah, how's that tiny apartment of yours still in that sketchy neighborhood?" "It's fine," I said. "And that old Toyota still running, must have 200,000 miles on it by now." She pressed a mean little smile playing at her lips. "Something like that?" "Must be hard barely making ends meet at your age," she continued. "I mean, you're 32 and still just an office drone." I could feel where this was going. She was trying to embarrass me in front of the whole family, trying to make herself look better by comparison, even though she was the one who dropped out of college and was living with our parents. "I manage," I said simply. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah, you're managing so well you can only afford to help Mom and Dad with $1,500 a month. Do you know how insulting that is? They asked for $3,000. They need $3,000. Aunt Jenny tried to intervene. "Lily, that's not appropriate dinner conversation." "No, I want to know." Lily cut her off. "I want to know why she's being so stingy when our parents are struggling, when I have student loans crushing me, when we could lose this house." Mom looked uncomfortable. "Lily, please. Sarah is helping as much as she can." "Is she, though?" Lily's voice got louder. Look at her. Always been cheap. Always pinching pennies with those secondhand clothes and that discount haircut. She's obviously holding out on us. She could help more, but she's just being selfish. It's pathetic. Lily, that's enough, Dad said, but without much conviction. But Lily was on a roll now. I know how much you make, Sarah. You can definitely afford more than $1,500 a month. You're just being selfish. The table went quiet. I realized Lily had planned this ambush all along. How much do I make, Lily? I asked calmly. What you said? You looked me up, so tell everyone exactly how much I make. She faltered slightly before regaining her confidence. Like $55,000 a year, which means after taxes and your cheap apartment, you should have plenty left over to actually help your family. I nodded slowly. Interesting math. It's not math. It's fact, she snapped. You're holding out on us, probably saving for some stupid vacation, while Mom and Dad might lose their house. Mom jumped in. Sarah, we don't expect you to solve all our problems, but if you could maybe increase your help just a little. And there it was, the whole setup. Lily had convinced them I was being stingy, holding back money I could easily give them. You know what I said, standing up. I need my laptop from my car. I want to show you all something. I went out to my car and grabbed my laptop. When I came back in, Lily had a smug look on her face, probably thinking she'd embarrassed me into coughing up more money. I sat down, opened my laptop, and logged into my investment account. Then I turned the screen toward them, showing the balance $7,243,158.65. This is what I've built while you all thought I was just scraping by at some office job. This is what I've accomplished with zero help from any of you. The silence was deafening. Mom's face went white. Dad's mouth hung open. But Lily looked like she'd been slapped. She stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen again. That's impossible. You drive a Toyota. You shop at Target, she said. I grinned. Yeah, because unlike some people, I don't treat money like Monopoly cash. See, I learned that it's smarter to invest in my future, not drop out of an expensive college and expect someone else to pick up the bill. Mom's brain must have rebooted because she suddenly slapped on this weird, overly excited smile. Oh, Sarah, this is just wonderful news. We always knew you'd do well. Always said you'd make something of yourself. Dad nodded like a bobblehead. That's my girl. Always had a good head for business. Yeah, sure, Dad. You were probably just telling the neighbors last week how proud you were of me while asking if they knew a good pawn shop. Lily was still staring at the screen, and I could practically hear the math equations flying through her brain. She finally looked up, her eyes shining with that special kind of greed that belongs in a documentary about gold diggers. We're family, Sarah, she said, her voice all soft and sweet like she was auditioning for a Disney princess role. Family supports family, and I've been having such a hard time. Oh, family, I tilted my head. Funny, I don't remember being family when you lied and got me kicked out at 17. Or when I was freezing my butt off in my car while you were redecorating my bedroom. Must have missed that group hug. That was years ago, Lily whined. I was just a kid. You were 15, Lil, I said, tilting my head. Old enough to know the difference between helping Mom and throwing me under the bus for your own gain. Congrats, though, you really nailed it. I turned to my parents. And you two believed her over me. No questions. Just tossed me out like last week's leftovers. Didn't even check if I survived. But now that you think there's money, suddenly I'm family again. Mom's tears were instant. Impressive, honestly. We made a mistake, she sniffled. But we can fix this. We can be a real family again. I chuckled slow and cold. A real family? Yeah, because nothing screams love like showing up after 8 years to ask for cash. Then just for dramatic flair, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and canceled the monthly transfer right there. Oops, looks like you'll have to find someone else to leech off. I'm done. Lily's sweet act dropped faster than my patience. You selfish witch. After everything we've done for you, I was baffled. Like I needed a minute to process the audacity. Everything you've done for me? Like what? Kicking me out? Turning my bedroom into your art studio before my side of the bed even got cold? Or was it the years of zero apologies and radio silence while I survived on instant noodles and library Wi-Fi? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just some incoherent sputtering, which was about as much as I expected. I shut my laptop with a loud snap and stood up. I'm leaving. Don't call me. Don't text me. In fact, pretend I died. It'll be easier for everyone. I made it halfway to the door before Mom came running, her hand reaching for me like she could physically pull me back into their web. "Sarah, wait. We're your parents, you owe us." I turned, smiling coldly. "I owed you nothing when you threw me out like garbage. I owe you even less now." Dad, never wanting to be outdone, called after me. "You ungrateful little—" I spun back so fast he shut up mid-sentence. "Ungrateful for what? For being kicked out? For freezing in my car while you redecorated my room? For being ignored and discarded for 8 years until my bank account got interesting?" No apology. Just blank, guilty stares. I opened the door and left. As I shut it behind me, I felt something inside me click into place, like a door slamming on an entire chapter of my life. Walking to my car, I glanced back once. Lily was watching me from the window, her expression this weird cocktail of shock, fury, and panic. The kind of look someone gives when they realize the ATM just ate their last card. I was barely through my apartment door when my phone started blowing up. Lily was calling nonstop, switching between leaving nasty voicemails, "You think you're so much better than us now?" and fake apologetic ones. "I'm sorry I got upset. I was just shocked." Mom texted about 50 times, starting with guilt trips and ending with straight-up demands for money. Dad left fewer messages, but his were the most threatening, talking about legal obligations and how I'd regret this decision. I blocked all their numbers that night, but it was just the beginning. 3 days after Christmas, I came home from the gym to find Lily sitting in her car outside my apartment building. When she saw me, she jumped out and rushed over. "Sarah, please, can we talk?" she asked, looking desperate. "I'm sorry about Christmas. I was just surprised." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, trying to move past her. She grabbed my arm. "You don't understand. I'm in real trouble. The student loans are not my problem," I finished for her. "Let go of my arm." Her face changed instantly, the fake sweetness replaced by the same mean expression I remembered from childhood. "You always thought you were better than me, didn't you? Even when we were kids, and now you think because you have money, you can just ignore your family." "Lily, we haven't been family since the day you lied and got me kicked out." "Oh my God, are you still hung up on that?" she sneered. "It was one little lie. How was I supposed to know they'd go nuclear?" I stared at her, stunned by her complete lack of remorse. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted my room. You wanted all the attention. And you got it. Congratulations." "I didn't know you'd end up homeless," she protested, but I could tell she was lying. "And anyway, look how well it worked out for you. You're rich now, no thanks to any of you." Her face got ugly then. "You know what, Mom and Dad are right. You owe us. And if you don't help us voluntarily, we'll make you." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. Dad's already talking to lawyers. You have a legal obligation to support your parents in their old age. It's called filial responsibility. Look it up." I actually laughed. "Tell Dad to save his money on lawyers. Those laws only apply in certain states under very specific circumstances, and none of them apply here." "We'll see about that," she snapped. "And I'm telling everyone what a selfish witch you are. The whole family. All our old friends. Everyone will know." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Tell them I won't give my abusive parents money. Tell them I won't fund your dropout lifestyle. See who actually cares." After she stormed off, their campaign didn't stop. Mom went on Facebook with a dramatic post about her troubled daughter abandoning her struggling family, playing the victim card hard. Dad actually consulted a lawyer, but when he was told he had no legal claim to my money, he switched to threats, saying he'd report me to the IRS for hiding assets, which I wasn't. Every penny was legitimate and taxed. That was my last straw. I gave notice at my apartment, took a leave of absence from work, and started searching for property in Colorado. I wanted distance, both physical and emotional. I found a cabin-style house near a small town in the Rockies, paid for it outright, packed up only what mattered, and left. I changed my phone number, email, everything. The day I drove away felt like my first real breath in years, like I'd finally stepped out of the shadow they'd kept me under. In Colorado, life started to feel real again. I volunteered at a youth shelter, remembering too well what it felt like to be young and homeless. That's where I met Alex. Kind patient, the exact opposite of anyone from my past. We started dating, and 6 months in, I told him everything about the homelessness, the secret investments, the mess with my family. I was terrified he'd look at me differently, but all he said was, "Are you okay?" Not about the money, not about the drama, just about me. A year later, we were married by a lake near our home, surrounded by people who actually cared. We built a foundation to help kids aging out of foster care, breaking the cycle I came from. And when our babies who had been bounced around the system came into our lives, it felt like everything had come full circle.